Most men don't realize the damage until they're standing in the wreckage wondering how someone who once held their heart so gently could walk away without looking back. You gave her your loyalty, your raw honesty, your quiet sacrifices. Not out of weakness, but because you believed in what you were building. And then she smiled like it all meant nothing. She laughed louder in rooms without you. She moved on publicly, as if grieving would be an inconvenience. And you sat with the silence. Not the kind that begs for a response, but the kind that teaches. See, most men spiral here. They chase, they question, they send paragraphs into the void, hoping for a trace of closure. But not you. Something inside you woke up. You realized that the man who begs loses not just the woman, but himself. So you stopped talking. You stopped seeking. You stopped offering your energy as proof that she still mattered. And in that space, something deeper was born: stillness, discipline, self-respect. You began building, not to win her back, but to reclaim what you forgot you had. She thought silence was weakness, but Stoics know. Silence is choice. Silence is strength. Silence is control. So if you're ready to rise, to stop bleeding for someone who never saw your value, subscribe to Stoic 24 and hit the bell icon, because this video is the beginning of a transformation she'll never be able to ignore. Number 1. Silence isn't emptiness. It's discipline. Most men don't understand the power of silence. They confuse it with defeat, like, if you're not speaking, you must be hurting. So they talk, they text, they chase clarity. They beg for explanations, for closure, for just one more talk. But you've grown past that. You don't move just because you feel something. You've realized that reaction is currency, and every time you react, you pay her ego in full. She doesn't deserve that anymore. Not your attention, not your explanations, not the emotional performance of your pain. Because silence, real silence, is where she begins to question. Did he move on? Did I mean nothing? Why hasn't he said anything? That's when the shift begins, not in your words, but in your absence. She expected noise. She got stillness. She expected tears. She got discipline. She expected to haunt you. And instead, you vanished from her emotional landscape like you were never touched by it. That silence? That's not weakness. It's strategy. Most men ignore this truth because they're still romanticizing what's already been broken. They think holding on means they cared. But a man who has learned control doesn't hold on, he releases. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. That's Stoicism, refusing to let someone else's chaos dictate your inner state. You're not quiet because you're broken. You're quiet because you've mastered yourself. And in a world addicted to noise, silence becomes the loudest proof that you've risen. Number 2. She wasn't the lesson. You were the wake-up call. Let's not romanticize what happened. She didn't just drift away. She pulled back with precision. Emotionally distant, selectively cold, slowly rewriting the story in her head. While you held on, thinking love could fix what her ego had already dismissed. Most men ignore that shift. They see her distance as stress, not detachment. They call it space, not escape. They wait, hoping it's temporary. But deep down, you felt it. You just didn't want to believe it. And now, in the silence that follows, no contact, she's forced to sit with what she walked away from. not just the attention, not the messages or the dates. What she really lost was your devotion, the kind of consistent, grounded presence she'll rarely encounter again. The man who stayed calm when she spiraled, who forgave without scoreboard, who gave without performance. And that kind of energy, that depth, can't be replaced by validation in someone else's arms dot. So let her scroll. Let her remember. Let her feel the absence of something she once took for granted. You don't need to remind her. You don't need to post. You don't need to prove you've moved on. Because here's the truth. You weren't just another chapter. You were the moment her story changed. And when that realization hits, it won't be with fireworks. It'll be quiet, humbling, sharp. That's what your silence does. It teaches without trying to teach. Stoicism isn't about revenge. It's about recognition that your worth is not measured by her memory of you, but by your own ability to move forward without needing to be remembered. Number 3, you're not ignoring her. You're rebuilding you. There's a difference between ignoring someone out of bitterness and choosing silence out of discipline. Most men can't tell the difference. They think that if they're not reacting, they're doing nothing. But silence, when rooted in purpose, is a weapon. You're not ignoring her because you don't feel anything. You're silent because you finally understand what deserves your energy. That late-night urge to text her, you feel it, but you don't act on it. Not because you're numb, but because you're done leaking your worth into someone who misread your value. This isn't detachment. This is realignment. You're not scrolling her page looking for clues. You're focused on your next chapter, lifting heavier, sleeping better, building deeper discipline. And while she checks your silence like a test she thought you'd fail, you're passing it quietly by not showing up at all. Most men chase because they confuse movement with progress. But movement isn't the same as growth. What you're doing now is growth. Grounded, painful, often invisible, but undeniable. You don't need to tell the world you're healing. You just show up stronger, one choice at a time. That's what separates men who suffer from men who evolve. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming clear. You're not playing games. You're reclaiming your peace. And that silence she once counted on to break you, it's now the space where you're rebuilding something she no longer gets access to. The Stoic knows. It's not about making noise. It's about making meaning. Number 4, stop giving her access to your healing. You've seen it before the subtle ping when you're finally catching your breath. A heart on an old post. A vague lyric about regret. A message that reads, "Hope you're well," just as your nights start getting quieter, lighter. But this isn't her reaching out from a place of clarity. It's not reconciliation. It's reconnaissance. She's not interested in rebuilding. She's testing the signal, checking if she still lives rent-free in your emotional space. And if you answer, if you engage even once, you confirm that she still does. That despite the silence, despite your effort to move forward, she can still pull you back. Understand this. She doesn't need you back. She needs to know she could get you back. That you're still orbiting, still accessible, still bleeding. And most men mistake this for progress, for hope. But it's not. It's ego. It's her feeding off the fragments of your healing. That's why you block. That's why you disappear. Not to be cold, not to get revenge, but to build a boundary around your peace. because no man rebuilds while leaving the back door open to the same storm that wrecked him. You're not being immature. You're being disciplined. And when the temptation to respond creeps in, remember this. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about directing it. And the man who directs his energy inward, who prioritizes stillness over validation, is the man who becomes untouchable. Your healing is sacred. Protect it like it's your legacy, because it is. Number 5. Real power is found in redirection. You might have believed that losing her was the end of your story, that it was the greatest pain you'd ever face. But that loss was not your downfall. It was your liberation. She wasn't this finish line, but the starting point of your return to what truly matters, yourself. You stopped asking for permission to exist with value, stopped hoping for someone else's recognition to validate your worth. Now you see it plainly, without filters or illusions. You walk taller not because you've erased the past, but because you've forgiven yourself for holding on too long to a place that could never match your measure. Your growth isn't a performance meant for applause. It's a quiet embodiment of strength. You don't waste energy competing with her. New life. You build one so solid and so full that even the memory of her becomes nothing more than a small detour on your path. Most men deny this transformation out of love or fear, clinging to what they've lost instead of embracing what they've found. But as the Stoics teach us, true power lies in mastering what is within your control. Your peace, your respect, your silence. These are the unshakable foundations on which you rebuild. In the absence of noise, your value speaks loudest. Conclusion. So let this be the moment you've been waiting for, the moment you stop bleeding for what's already done. Too many men stay trapped, caught in the echo of their past wounds, convincing themselves that the pain defines them, that the loss owns their time and focus. But it doesn't have to be that way. You have the power to reclaim everything, your time, your energy, your future, not for her, not for anyone else's story, but for your own peace. This isn't bitterness. Speaking, it's clarity, it's growth. It's the quiet strength of a man who refuses to be a chapter in someone else's ego trip. Most men never reach this point because they mistake denial or love for strength. But true strength is found in acceptance and control, in knowing what you can change and what you must let go. The Stoic relationship blueprint isn't just another guide to healing. It's a roadmap to becoming the man who walks forward with calm certainty, unshaken by chaos or rejection. If you're ready to stop letting heartbreak write your narrative, say it now. I choose power. Because the hardest truth is also the most freeing. You don't control others, only your response. And in that silence, in that control, your self-respect is rebuilt. The pain ends here. The warrior begins now.